Hey everyone, welcome back to the Valencia Career Mode. It's Season 1, Episode 2, and as you guys remember, we started off this series with a convincing win against Getafe, 4-0, and it was such a good performance from us, a dominant one, and we're going to look at some of the statistics from that game, and this is a new section that I'm putting into all my career modes so that we can have a real in-depth look at the things we're doing correctly, some of the things that need work, players who are over or underperforming. Stats like these, they're so key. They're integral in football nowadays, and they're going to help us as well. We had 63% possession in that game, which is a decent number, especially for the first game of the season. But I want to get that number into the high 70s, guys, on average, because I want to dominate teams. I want to play them off the pitch. And if you look at some of the more advanced possession heat maps, there was some really encouraging signs, guys. We kept a lot of possession in their half, and this is exactly what you want. You want to push them back. You want to play a high line as high as possible and suffocate them, and we did this extremely well. In terms of winning the possession back, we want to ideally win it as quickly as possible right after we lose it and as high up the pitch as possible, and we did that fairly decently as well in this game. We still need to work on that. In terms of losing possession, though, we play out from the back, so you never want to see on the possession heat map that you lose it anywhere near your goal, and we did fantastically in this game, guys. We barely lost it in our own half. It was really good in that respect. In terms of chance creation, there was really no problem. We had a number of threatening opportunities. Creativity was there, and we had a number of shots. A lot of the goals we scored were from that central area. If you were to draw a line from the posts all the way to the half line, it would create this central area, and you want to get most of your goals from here. That's why we work the ball into the box, cut it back, and try to get nice clean opportunities. We did that extremely well this game, and when you look at the individual performances, some of them were just absolutely outstanding. Our midfield hardly put a foot wrong. Soler, Virman, and Racic had almost 100 passes in between them, and they misplaced like 3. It was just outstanding. Racic making sure that that build-up from the back works perfectly in that Guardiola role. Virman, that more advanced playmaker, he got 2 assists because he was playing those final balls in, and Soler grabbed the headlines. He was getting on the end of everything. He netted 2 goals, and it was just so good to see. What a dominant performance. And we want to translate all of this into our next games in this episode, guys. First up, we have Granada. This will be a slightly more difficult fixture than Getafe because we're playing away from home, and they also have just a little bit more quality in their squad. The way they're going to set up is they're going to want to drop back and retain defensive shape, giving us possession. Now, they're going to play fairly narrowly, so it'll be difficult to break down, but they don't want to play strictly low block. And I feel that's because they want to be a little bit higher up the pitch so that if we do make a mistake, they can quickly counter and have an opportunity of their own. They have it set to fast build up, to forward run, so it makes sense that they're going to want to counter fast. We're going to have to make sure then to either win possession lightning fast or to have runners back so that we deal with this. They don't want to, however, commit too many players into the box, and this tells me that they want to then quickly reorganize back into their defensive shape, so they're not going to be taking a great amount of risk. They want to play it a little bit more conservatively. They're setting up in a 4-4-2 so that 2 banks of 4 with a defensive discipline setup will give them that platform to then transition into their offensive phase. And I feel like the most interesting part of their setup, and the most threatening in my opinion, is that left-hand side. Their right back is set to staying back, but their left back is set to overlap and join the attack. Machis to cut inside. So they're going to overload that left-hand side and try to create from there. They also, coincidentally, have their best players and their fastest players, Luis Javier Suarez and Darwin Machis, on that left-hand side. So this is an area of concern for us. We definitely have to watch out for this. That's where they'll look to do most of their damage. Vas will have to be on top of his game. Virman will probably have to add a little bit more defensive work rate. And Racic will probably need to drift a little bit more wide to then compensate for them blitzing us on this left-hand side. Overall, we're not changing anything in our setup. Nothing in our squad. We're just going to go with the same squad that won against Getafe and see how this formation does in the second game, guys.
Ahí están los jugadores del Valencia.
Okay, so the way I like managing a game, especially in this Cruyff 3-4-3 diamond system where there's such heavy emphasis on possession, is not to do anything crazy at the beginning and establish yourself as that dominant possession team. Make sure you're patiently building up the play, nothing too fast. Just get into the groove, get into the flow, see what's open, see what's available, pass it around, patiently probe. And if there's nothing out on the wing like here, recycle it to Racic, move it out to the other side, shuffle the team either via a long pass or a few short passes, and wait for your opportunity to strategically increase the pace of play. And we did that here early on, where we moved it in the middle and then made a quick pass into the penalty box, and it was a nice shot and an even better save. But it was a good chance early on here against Granada, and then slowly you're moving on through the gears and finding opportunities easier and faster to come by. We did a very decent job against Granada early on, but they had their quite clear game plan, and it was like I described in the pre-match. It's a few passes, quick vertical play. Matches is on his bike here, and it's just offside in this case, but they had clear intentions. Right when we made a mistake, they wanted to get on their bikes and capitalize on it, and that's how they played. We, on the other hand, continued to stick to our system, and we did fairly well. It was decent play, but we lacked teeth. We lacked teeth in this first half. We had a number of good opportunities like this one, but then when it came push to shove, we lacked that finishing quality at the end. With the score being 0-0 at half, I feel like these are the situations where you need to go for the jugular and try to get the full 3 points. Be a little bit brave, risk a little bit more, try to make a tactical adjustment. In my case, I quickened the pace of play, I tried to switch the play more often, I tried to get more forward runs, forward passes. Just ask questions of the opposition, try to get them to make a mistake. Even though you can make a mistake of your own and get caught out, countered, you need to try to risk it. I missed a great opportunity here. This should have been a pass in the middle. It would have been golden. And one-touch football was the name of the game. And that's why I brought on Nandes for Musa to increase that passing ability. I was hoping that would give me the thing that I needed to break this deadlock. Unfortunately, we had a lot of opportunities, but like in the first half, they lacked teeth. Guedes makes a darting run, saved by the Granada goalkeeper. And that was just constant from us. And Granada, they did what they were good at. They tried to counter. Puerta skips past 2, he releases Baca, you can see how fast they're moving, everyone's on their bikes, it's a cross into the middle, and Silason has to make a great reflex save. So both teams were having chances, and you could just feel it was going to be one goal to decide it. That was the feeling you were getting. I brought on Moriba to add a little bit of a different angle. He's a bit of a long shot specialist, a little bit more nimble than the Kettler, so I thought maybe that would be the thing to break the deadlock. And again, we moved it well, and we were moving it fast, to be fair. It wasn't just sideways passes, but again, we were just lacking the finishing boots. I mean, you have to do better than that, Moriba. That's not good enough. And we weren't able to get a goal early on. Granada was trying as well. They did well. We locked up the left-hand side a little bit more, and they used the right-hand side. Another great penetrating pass, and Silason, great sweeper-keeper goalkeeping. It was 0-0. We had a last chance in the 90th minute here, and again, just a lack of quality, just not good enough, and it ends 0-0. It's a wasted opportunity a little bit, because I felt like we played well enough in parts of the game to get a win here, even if it was 1-0, but unfortunately, we couldn't break it down, and it ends up 0-0, guys. We have to improve. Looking back at the game and looking at the statistics, there was a lot of things we did fairly well, but there's a lot that needs to be worked on. We had 63% possession, but a lot of it was empty. There wasn't too much to show for it. We didn't create the amount of chances that I would have liked, and the ones we created were not finished. We were toothless in the final third. So those are the main points. But if you look a little bit more closely at the possession, we had a lot in the first half, right? A nice amount, 78, which is where I want to be. And we had nothing to show for it. We didn't manipulate the ball. It was side to side and not enough penetrating passes. Certainly not enough one-touch passes. In the second half, we relinquished possession. We gave it to Granada, and they were able to create more opportunities than us. So there's two things to address in that sense. If you look at the heat map, we did a fairly good job in build-up. That was done well, because you can see there's no possession in the wide areas of our own third of our own half. And that's because we didn't need to use outlets in the wide areas. We manipulated it through Racic and Veerman to build up the play through the middle and bypass whatever defenses Granada was throwing at us. So that's good. There was certain good aspects. We did a little bit worse in terms of winning possession back. We certainly could have done with winning the possession back higher up the pitch. We didn't do a good enough job at winning it fast enough, and in turn, Granada was able to get chances of their own. So this is definitely an area that we need to tighten the screws on. In terms of losing possession, we didn't have any problems with playing out from the back, so that's good. That's consistent from last game. In terms of shots, like I said, the creativity wasn't there. We didn't create enough opportunities. We only had 7 shots. That's half of what we had last game. And the shots we did have, I mean, we need to do better finishing them. It's as simple as that. We need to take what we can get. So there's a lot to improve on here, guys. Some of the individual performances were average, a little bit lethargic. Maybe that's why maybe the players weren't on their game. Paulista, as you can see here, he played most of the game on the halfway line. So what does this tell you? It means we were dominant. And so if we were so dominant, why couldn't we produce a little bit more? And that comes back to the midfield. As good as they were in the first game, Racic was not moving it fast enough from side to side. He needs to pick up the ball, recycle it, and move it, shuffle the ball quickly, either to the left or to the right, play a long ball. It needs to be quick. There's no point of playing slow passes that the opposition can then just adjust to and shuffle from side to side. It doesn't work. In terms of Soler, he wasn't making enough darting runs. In the first game, he was getting into the box every single time. In this game, he was a little bit more reserved. You can see there's not a lot of heat map in that penalty box, and it's because he just didn't attack it enough. In terms of Veerman, he actually did quite a decent job. He was in that sort of transitional phase. He was in that sector of the pitch where he's that advanced playmaker, and he was putting in decent balls to where they needed to be. That was actually a decent performance despite what the 6.8 rating says. And you can see when he's on possession, build up play, he retreats a little bit to pick up the ball if Racic can't do it. And then he doesn't have ball possession until he gets closer to that penalty box. And this is exactly what you want for Veerman. So like I said, some individual performances were shabby, some were on point, but overall, system-wise, we need to do a lot better. Okay, so after about a month and a half into the game, we are starting to get things organized, guys. And in terms of the scouting department, since we are a 4-star rated club, we can have 5 scouts of up to 4 stars each. And so I decided to add Davide Ferretti to the staff. In terms of our youth department, we had an excellent 4.5-star rated Spanish scout who I sent to look for playmakers in Spain. And I wanted to add a Portuguese scout to the series for the flavor. And I lucked out on Fabio Moreira, who's a 4-star scout. And I sent him to look for wingers in Portugal. Now, usually, according to my rules, a 4-star rated club can hire 3-star rated youth scouts. So 1 star lower than whatever the club is. And the only reason we're doing a different thing here is because we are on the list of top 25 world-renowned youth academies in the world. So we can hire any scout we want. Now, we can still only hire the 2 for now because we are not yet a 4.5-star club. That is when you can hire your 3rd, and that's what we'll do when we get to that level. In terms of what's been happening in the transfer market, we've had a lot of offers for Soler, and I've said at the beginning of the series, I'm making an exception and not selling either Soler or Gaia because they have been at the club since they were kids, so I'm making that exception and keeping them for the entire series. Other than that, we had an offer for Correa, and I mean 10 million, for a guy who I'm not going to use because he doesn't fit into the system, is more than enough. Aston Villa can have him. The 8.5 million will get allocated by the board, will come in handy for our next transfer. In terms of the loan market, Vasquez got an excellent loan without an option to buy, which is not something you always get in this game. Tereo Vallecano, he's a young player. He'll get a chance to develop, and that's just fine by me. I decided to accept that, but reject the offer for Guillamon. It was a good offer, but he's our only cover for CB, and I'm quite high on him. I want to give him chances, so I rejected that offer. Now, in terms of the transfer business we were able to do, I've brought in 5 players to change the system and implement our new style of play. I presented those players in the first video, and this is just an add-on to give you guys the realistic transfer calculation for each of them. In the bottom portion of the screen, you'll see a small summary that goes over the criteria I use to determine if a transfer is realistic or not. If you want a more detailed explanation with examples, go check out my video on how to play career mode realistically, or check out my written version of the rule set, which I always put in the description below. Now, in terms of these transfers, I just wanted to note that Vierman was still a part of Herenveen when I started this career mode and not PSV. It made the transfer a lot easier, and Moriba was not yet listed as Ghanaian, so that played a part in both the compatriot and home bonuses. In terms of the players we want to bring in moving forward, we need to strengthen the winger position. There's not a lot of quality there, and I have a feeling Guedes will be leaving. He's a really good player, and he's going to be tough to hang on to. Now, I want this transfer to be yours, guys. I want you to engage with me, go into the comment section, leave suggestions, because I'm going to make this winger transfer hopefully at the very beginning of Season 2. And I'm going to compile as many names as possible, and I want this signing to be yours. You know how I play. You know what I expect from this winger. There's got to be that passing ability. I want him to be able to beat a man. Obviously, pace is an asset. And you know that I want this transfer to be realistic, but I want this career mode to be yours as much as mine. So give me your thoughts, guys. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Deportivo Alaves game, and this will be a true test of whether or not we can break down a low block, because that's how they're going to set up. They're going to drop back and play deep, so we're going to have a lot of the possession. The question is, what are we able to do with that possession? Because they're going to be quite content to sit and play long balls and direct passing to try to get their opportunities. They're setting up in a 4-1-4-1, so to be sure, it's going to be a bank of 4 and a bank of 5, defending deep and trying to break. They have Joelinton set up as a target man, so he can be that focal point. They'll pump balls up to him and look for him to hold up the play and wait for his teammates to come farther up the pitch, and they'll set their wingers to stay wide so that they can also be an outlet on the counter. Now, the thing we're going to have to do is break down their defense. Lejeune and LaGuardia are an experienced CB partnership, and we're going to have to prove that we can break down a low block. The only change I'm making here is to put Vas out on the wing instead of Musa, since there won't be too much space to run in behind. Instead, we're going to need that extra passing ability to break him down. All right, guys, let's show him how it's done. Let's beat him.
Expresiones de determinación en los hombres del Alavés, y ahora quiero oíros bien fuerte. ¡Sale el Valencia!
There's no one right way of playing football, and both the low block and the possession style can have success, but sometimes it's not really about success, it's about a little bit of good luck, and that's exactly what we got here in the 5th minute. Vega scores off of a rebound, and we're up 1-0, guys, and this makes things extra difficult for Deportivo Alaves because they're now set up in a low block, which is not really set up to be proactive and score goals, and all of a sudden they're 1-0 down very early on in the game, and you can see just how well, guys, we keep possession. The number of passes before we lose possession or before we even have a shot on target is quite numerous. We spread the play, we bring it out wide, we switch the play often, and we try to bring it back into the middle to create chaos and find those opportunities where we can get good shots. Here we cut it back, and that's exactly what we want to do. And this time it just didn't work because it got blocked, but we're stretching them, we're playing a number of passes, and this time Deportivo Alaves saves it. We get a corner, and it's saved off the line. That should have been 2-0, and we were just pummeling Deportivo Alaves. Finally, they were able to get some semblance of possession, some semblance of a chance, and they had a good spell of 15 minutes where they threatened, mostly from distance though. Silason was able to make a save. They continued to pressure, and they had decent opportunities. I was disappointed that we couldn't be a little bit more dominant on possession, and they genuinely got into some threatening chances, some threatening positions. But we were able to finally do something that we don't normally do because we do have a lot of possession, but we were able to counter, and you always take these opportunities. If they're presented clearly to you, you don't build up slowly, you take whatever you can get. We cross it to the back post, and it's another post. I mean, that is just so unlucky. Deportivo Alaves would end this half on a positive note. Again, they were able to be a little bit more proactive despite their setup, but it was all from distance. Alaves continued to play the low block, and to be fair, it did serve them well in certain respects because they were organized and they did get a number of blocked shots, which is good, but at some point I decided, okay, instead of shooting, let's try to play a clever pass in here. I play in Guedes, and he makes it 2-0, guys. A little bit of bad luck again from Alaves, perhaps, but this is exactly why sometimes I don't like the low block, because it's a little bit too negative, it forces you too far back, and it's a little bit too reactive. And now all of a sudden, Alaves is down. They have to go for the game if they want anything from it, and they have to be proactive. So I'm going to bring on faster wingers, faster players in general, Blanco, Musa, and Moriba, and that extra mobility will help us to exploit the extra spaces that are sure to be there now that Alaves is trying to open up and go for the game. Now, they didn't really have an answer for us. We kept the ball well, as you can see here. We're dominant in possession, and we use this wing play to cut it back as we usually like. Racic gets on the end of it this time, and he bangs it into the top corner, guys. What a goal. What a goal from Racic. He doesn't usually get in on the goal-scoring action, but they left him with so much space, and he just thumped it into the back of the net. And at that point, I mean, you're disheartened. You're down 3-0, and you're disorganized at this point because you've lost 3 goals, and it opened up a ton of space. You can see there's players running into the box in acres of space, and this time it was a save by their goalkeeper. Musa got it on the edge of the box, and he couldn't put it in, but there was a number of chances that we had. Alaves would have one last chance, and they tried to abuse the one, I feel, weakness that they could have in this game, across to the back post with our short fullback, Silesin. What a save. He keeps it at 3-0, guys, and it's another good dominant performance. We proved that we can break a team down that plays a low block. This is also our 3rd clean sheet in a row, so a decent start to the season, guys, and we're going to be looking to build on this going forward. For the most part, guys, there's a lot of positives to take. If you look at the stats, the expected goals are up. Possession is still decent, so there's no problems in the creativity department. In terms of possession, the only thing I'd say is perhaps we keep very dominant possessions in certain portions of the game, but relinquish it in others. We need to do a better job at applying consistent pressure and really suffocating teams, but we did very well in terms of getting the ball back in their third, in their half. So there was a lot of positives, and the midfield yet again was clicking. I mean, the amount of passes they have, this time I think they had 1 or 2 only misplays in between Racic, Virman, and Soler, and that is just such a strong point of our team and such an integral part to this system. They do need to be comfortable on the ball, and you can see Racic is everywhere, starting the build-up, and then later on, recycling play. He's playing a number of passes very accurately. Soler on this left-hand side is veering into that penalty box and being more dangerous. You can see the number of passes in and around the penalty box, so he's a little bit more engaged in the chance creation. Virman again is that in between. He's in the transition but also in the attacking phase, and you can see he's slotted into that spot right in between the penalty box and the halfway line. And if we continue like this, guys, there's great things to come from us in the games ahead. Alright, before we move on to our next game here, there was a big commotion in the last hours of the transfer window, guys. I auto-rejected an offer for Gaia, then I was negotiating for Vallejo. Porto weren't able to give me the 14 million that I wanted, and then finally Inter came in for another one of our players, and this time I had to sell, guys. They're an 82 rated club. We are only a 78 rated club, and the player that will be leaving is Paulista. Now you have the player evaluation calculation at the bottom of the screen. His market value is 25 million. He's a crucial player for us. He's in good form and he's happy, so that's an extra 40% on top of his value, which comes to 35 million, and that's what I asked Inter. They accepted, and unfortunately, Gabriel Paulista has left our club. We're getting 31 million. And it makes sense if you look at it. Inter is a much better club. They play in Champions League and they're giving him double the money, 100,000 a week. And it's just a realistic transfer. We're going to have to deal with it now. I'm going to try to change Racic into a CB. that might do the trick. We're going to have to see if he's capable of playing that position. And the transfer window goes on, guys. There was so many offers. Guedes was literally wanted by like every club in the world. The latest from Borussia Mönchengladbach, I declined, but you can see he's just going to get sold probably in the winter, and that's why we need that winger replacement. There was an offer for Rakic again from Barcelona, so I would normally have to sell, but seeing how this is the deadline day, you only have to make one deadline day sale in my rule set. So luckily we didn't have to sell Rakic, so that would be just a tragedy. We would lose our CB and the guy that's supposed to be our CB. That would be a very bad situation for us. Luckily, all in all, we kept on to him, only selling Paulista, and we have 70 million and 130,000 in wage, and this is going to go heavily towards a winger, but we may need a strengthening in the CB position. We'll see how the season progresses, and then we'll make that decision in the winter, possibly in the summer of the second season, guys. Osasuna will be the last game of the episode, guys. And they're a bit of a buffed up Granada in terms of how they set up. They like to drop back just the same and wait for you to make a mistake. Utilize that fast build-up and forward runs when you do. But they play a much higher line than Granada does, which means they're going to try to do this higher up the pitch. It's more risky, but also more rewarding when they do pull it off. Now, they're setting up in a 4-1-4-1 like Deportivo Alaves, but this is a case where you can really see the formation doesn't dictate how you play because it's a completely different setup. They're not doing a low block. Similarly to Granada, they are leaving that right back in defense. They're bombing the left back forward. Ontiveros is cutting inside, and they're overloading that left-hand side. Now, in addition, Montocaiola is going to be acting as a deep line playmaker, staying back while the team is attacking, recycling play, but also spraying passes as that deep line playmaker. He is one of the biggest threats because if you can shut him down, a lot of what Osasuna is trying to do will be neutralized. The other threat, I think, is Kike Garcia and his ability to act as that poacher with that excellent finishing and heading he has. So if we can neutralize some of these threats, I think we'll have a good time. We're also going to be looking at how Rakic does in his new role as CB. Unfortunately, Paulista has left us. Guillamon will be taking up the duties of the CDM, and I'm also giving a chance to our young goalkeeper Mamardashvili. I'm going to be giving him chances every few games against a little bit weaker opponents and seeing how he does. Alright guys, let's get into the game. There wasn't too much action in the first half, although Osasuna did have a good first 20 minutes where they abused that left-hand side with that bombing fullback. He did cause us a number of problems and put a few crosses in. We struggled with these because that fullback is shorter, and if it comes to the back post, it's a dangerous situation. In that case, it wasn't a goal. We found it a little bit difficult to break Osasuna down. They were pressuring the ball well, and we were a little bit lethargic at the beginning, and the chances we did have, again, were toothless, just like in the Granada game. And just like in the Granada game, we found ourselves having decent worked chances that just had the tamest finishes at the end. Over here, you can see we passed the ball well. There's a number of blocks, and this comes from their disciplined defense, and we try to break them down. In the end, it comes to Vega, and I mean, a child can hit this better. He really could. The second half was much better from us, guys, much more lively, and I think it comes down to the fact that I have to find a balance in each game between keeping good possession, building up patiently from the back, and quickening the pace to be more dangerous and more unpredictable, just to have a little bit more oomph. And in this case, we take a series of risky passes, but they work. And Vega gets on the end of it, and he smashes it in, guys, 1-0, and that's exactly what you want to see. Vega gets into perfect position, and this tactic is devastating. When people move off the ball into correct positions, you can see Vega loiters around, he just drifts into space and smashes it in, guys, and the finishing is there, which is more important in this game. Like I said, in the game against Granada and in the first half in this game, the finishing boots were not there, and it's important. we start moving the ball around so well, guys, and you can see when it works, when players are moving off the ball and just the fluidity is there, it's so much more dangerous. Soler gets on the end of this one, and it's a post, but that was such a good chance, and Soler is the master of that. When he drifts in from that central midfield position, surging into the box, it's so dangerous. I decided to bring on some substitutes after, Musa and Moriba, to get the pace of the play a little bit higher, and Osasuna went for it. About in the 80th minute, they started playing a different style of football. They got out onto the break, and Mamardashvili had to save our ass. What a save. He bailed us out, and the game opened up. Osasuna took the risk, and they paid dearly for it, guys, because I brought on Musa, and they ain't catching up to this guy. And it's 2-0, guys. That's it. Done and dusted. That is the tactical adjustment that gives you the win, guys. If I had kept Vas up there, or a slower player was brought on, he could have not done what Musa did, and he will get you a few goals a season just by doing that, just by pace alone. And that was a great substitution. Osasuna had one last say in this game, and we finally lose our first goal, guys. What a back heel, and what a thumping finish from the Osasuna striker. Unfortunately, we can't keep the clean sheet. But you know what? That's the danger you play with here. There's always room in behind in this tactic, and sometimes you'll get exploited. We lose the goal, but not the game, guys, and that's the most important thing. We're off to a great start. 10 points in the first 4 games out of a possible 12, 3 clean sheets, so it's all positive stuff. If you like this content, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. I love engaging with you guys. For now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode, guys. Laters!